working in IT industry for about 13 years now, and especially on middleware stack, it is going to be 9 years, and working on different platforms and different versions of middleware. And typically from about 2006, I've been following different versions of the same WebLogic and SOA suites, and also supported different streams of business, and supported heavyweight applications, both from on-site and offshore. So currently I'm working as a technical manager, supporting multiple clients running on SOA suite, and having exposure towards both implementation and support of continuous learning platforms that are running with SOA suite. Good, that's about my intro, and let me slowly take you to SOA suite. But before we understand about the technical stuff, let us try to first understand where SOA suite fits into the market, and why people need SOA, and what is the intention of developing this SOA suite, and why Oracle has to come up this SOA suite. Let's understand a typical business scenario where there is a company running with the oldest software. For example, if you take the COBOL or any of the old legacy systems are running with old code, and over a period of time, to interact with the new systems, the people may need to upgrade from the old technology to new technology. For example, let's understand we are using Flipkart, and you want to order an item on Flipkart, and if backend applications are, let's say, COBOL or any legacy systems, if you place an order for any of the item on Flipkart, in the backend, this Flipkart application is supposed to interact with the old legacy system. Now, from new technology, let's assume Flipkart is developed on a Java technology and the legacy system is on COBOL. Now, the concept is how Java application is going to interact with the COBOL. If it is a direct communication required, what obviously the organization needs to do is, since COBOL is no more supported, direct support by any of the technologies today in the market, they may need to upgrade from COBOL to new technology. That is how people communicate and organization communicate each other between technologies. Now, where Oracle started thinking is, instead of rewriting all the technology from old legacy systems to new technology, what best we can do it to avoid that upgrades immediately, so that irrespective of any technologies, like how Java talks to COBOL, how .NET talks to COBOL, and in any legacy systems for that matter. I'm only giving 2 examples, but there are huge number of systems still running with oldest code, and organizations do not want to upgrade that code. Rather, Oracle has come up with a solution as how best we integrate any of the systems, let it be new technology, let it be mainframes, let it be COBOL, let it be legacy systems, let it be Oracle database, any technologies we could integrate with SOA suite. Now, if you remember any of the online applications we are using today for buying any of online items, for purchasing any of the movie tickets or booking railway tickets and bus tickets, any online shopping we are doing today, we need to understand that in the back end there may be multiple applications interacting with each other. For example, if you book any of the item on Flipkart, and just if you place an order for Samsung mobile, from Flipkart is going to interact with the multiple applications, and these multiple applications may be on of different technology. For example, Flipkart may be on Java, Samsung application may be on .NET and Oracle. Then how Java and Oracle communicate each other. For example, postal address, it may be old legacy systems, for example, like Fox Pro, and how Java talks to Fox Pro. So SOA suite comes in the middle of these technologies, where it can also integrate both Java, .NET, Oracle, mainframes, COBOL, any of the technology we take. It has the capability of integrating multiple technologies, so that without upgrading the technology and without depending on any technology in this world, any technology can talk to any other technology. just by integrating SOA suite in middle. So this is one example where SOA fits. Like this, we have a huge number of advantages. We go forward with the content, high level content of SOA suite, then we understand where SOA fits in. And also it is one of the best solution which avoids the cost effective of upgrading applications, and it also saves the time just by integrating. It's kind of plug and play. Suppose if I bring in tomorrow a new application and I want to bring into my organization, it's just like plug and play with the SOA suite. You get the new application, integrate with SOA suite, then it starts interacting with every application in the organization. So SOA suite provides a robust solution. It's like, one integration can, multiple applications can bring in together. Right, so let me take you to further slides and we go through much details, and we will also cover some more advantages with SOA suite. Then we will have a clear idea. Okay, now at this point of time, I'm sure you have a slight idea of where SOA suite fits in, and that's why I wanted to give you a brief about where it fits into the market. Now, let us go through and understand what is the history of SOA suite and current and future versions of SOA. And to learn SOA suite, what is that we need? Prerequisites and software requirements. What are the softwares we need to install the SOA or set up SOA in our systems, and also hardware requirements. So what is the supported hardware configuration that we may need to have in the place? Okay. So we'll go through these details to have a little understanding. Let me close this window. Oh, that's fine. I'm sorry, just let me go back. Yeah, perfect. So we will go through this stuff, and before we move on to the slide, we need to have a clear understanding of this history and other requirements. So to give you history, as I said before, Oracle SOA Suite is initiated and developed by a company called Oracle Corporation. And the idea behind, as I said, they want to bring in a robust solution where the multiple technologies can integrate together and start communicating, and also supports the business flow. And it has come up with, Oracle come up with multiple versions of SOA Suite. And as we all know that the current running market, running versions in the market are both 11G and 12C. And still many organizations are with 11G, but slowly migrating to 12C. But as of today, the demanding version is definitely going to be 11G. But between 11G and 12C, it's not something placed in the dark, but it's only a couple of features added. And while we go through the SOA content, we can keep comparing what is there in the 11G and what brought in 12C, and then we can keep going to understand both the versions and to get hands-on. And prerequisites to learn SOA, it's pretty much as we discussed, SOA itself is an added component on WebLogic. So I prefer to have, I don't say mandatory, but definitely yes, it is preferred to have WebLogic knowledge, because we need to understand either to install or to run or maintain SOA suite. The basic ground is going to be WebLogic, no doubt, and SOA suite will run on top of WebLogic as added component. And those who know WebLogic, it's going to be definitely good. Even, for example, if someone doesn't know WebLogic, so we may need to add in some of the content going forward while we discuss some of the components in SOA. But otherwise, I prefer to have, it's a good. And software requirements, as I said, SOA suite is going to be added, one of the component on WebLogic. So we may need to have Oracle database, because the difference between why we need to have Oracle database, if you look at WebLogic, even WebLogic needs a database, but only difference is it needs a lightweight database and very less amount of data is going to be stored. So because it's going to be limited, the WebLogic uses the default database, which is going to be Derby, which comes as internal database. By the time we install WebLogic, Derby will also be installed automatically, and WebLogic is going to use that default database to store all its running data. But whereas coming to SOA, it has its own database schemas and structures, and it needs a huge amount of database space, which we cannot accommodate in the default databases like Derby or Pointbase, which is the reason why Oracle strongly recommends to go for the external database, which is Oracle. So before we proceed with, we can go through in SOA installation steps, but to give you a brief, before we go to SOA installation itself, we may need to have the Oracle database in the place, and we may need to create some of the schemas and tables. So what Oracle recommends is, before you go set up of any systems, you need to have the Oracle database installed in the place. And second thing is, to run Oracle SOA suite, it may need multiple database tables and database schemas. They are huge. There are around, like, if I remember correctly, there are around 100 and 120 tables around. And to create manually, it's going to take hell a lot of time. And we may also do any of the mistakes in terms of creating tables, in terms of creating schemas. So if we commit any of the mistake in terms of creating tables, SOA suite will trouble us. It may not run properly. So which is the reason why Oracle did not want to take a chance and did not want to waste the time to create schemas and tables, which is the reason why they have come up with a multiple tables and scope schema creation, and that is how they have provided a script to automatically generate those schemas and those tables, which is called as RCU. We call it as resource creation utility. So in this case, resource is definitely going to be database schemas and tables. So to generate those tables, Oracle gave us a script, and the script name they have given as RCU, which is resource creation utility, which we may need to download as a separate component and which we may need to run. That we will see how to download and set up it during installation. And third one is WebLogic. So as I said, SOA suite is going to be one of the component running on top of WebLogic, and we still need to have the WebLogic software to proceed with the SOA installation. And the final one is SOA software. Depends on the version that you are going to install. Let it be either 12G or let it be 12C, 11G or 12C, whatever. So we may need to download the appropriate version from there is official website of download.oracle.com, which we may need to download depending on the version, and we may need to start installing. So the installation order is going to be more or less same. So it's going to be like Oracle database installation, RCU creation, WebLogic installation, further SOA installation. This is the order we usually follow it to set up the Oracle SOA suite installation. And the final one is going to be hardware requirements. So we may need to have the minimum decent setup. Here, when I say hardware requirements, I need to talk about two configurations. One, what is the hardware requirement we need to have in our local systems to run the SOA suite, and also to run SOA suite effectively on servers in the commercial segment or in the organization. It may need a separate configuration. So when we get into the SOA suite installation procedure, we definitely go through and then go in depth of those configurations. But otherwise, for our personal systems, it is preferred to have at least 8 GB of the RAM and maybe like 40-50 of GB of the hard disk. And it is always better to run effectively from i3 processor, but I'm sure it also runs on Core 2 Duo, but prefer to have at least i3 and higher. Any questions till now?
No, Naren.
Perfect. Right. So to give you, I'm sure that at this point you may not understand all these components, and even I'm not going to talk much about it. But just to give you a brief and to know what is there in SOA suite, I've listed all those major components that we may need to focus, and some of them we may not require because those are typically used by development team, which we are not going to touch at all. And most of them, yes, we need to learn, and it also depends on what are the components we need to get hands on and what are the major components used in the organization. So let's go through one by one in a high brief and then try to understand the high level description of why do we use it. So first one, we call it as a JDeveloper. It is the one which I say that for admins it is not required. The reason because it is mostly used by development team to develop their SOA code, which we are not going to touch at all. So JDeveloper, yes, we can see, just try to get hands-on, but typically for SOA admin, we don't need to be too hands-on on JDeveloper because it's going to be SOA development activity. And Oracle Service Bus, if any of the services we have in the place, how do we expose those services? For example, I have a piece of code and my piece of code is saying, displaying a message called good morning. Now, I want this piece of code to distribute to everyone so that everyone can start making use of my piece of code so that I expose to the world as one of the component or a service. So that facility can be done by Oracle Service Bus. It means, for example, now we have a Samsung product. Now what Samsung company can do is they can develop a Samsung product website, and that website can be distributed to other applications like Flipkart, like Amazon, like to any other applications. And to expose that as a service, Samsung needs a Oracle Service Bus so that what they can do is their product catalog and all the order systems they can expose as a service. And then if you go place any order through Amazon to Samsung, so your order goes to Amazon, Amazon will redirect to Oracle Service Bus, and Oracle Service Bus will send a final order to Samsung. So that is how it acts as a service exposer between publisher and subscriber that we will go in detail later when we get into the content. And Oracle event processing is something that if any of the events happening in the SOA suite, so this event will be processed by one of the component called event processor. And like this, in SOA suite, there may be many events running parallelly, and all those events can happen and maintained by event processing. An Oracle Policy Manager, so you know that we may have the different policies applied on different process and different events. So to apply those policies on either business flows or any messages or anywhere, we have a separate component called Oracle Policy Manager. So this will talk about how policies are maintained and associated to services. And the fourth one, metadata service repository. If you remember, we just talked about RCU in the previous screen, which is a resource creation utility. So what it does, it creates both the tables and schemas in database, which we are going to use by SOA suite. And metadata service repository is one of the schema getting created as part of the RCU creation, and which is heavily used by SOA suite. And we will come to later of what is that it stores in the metadata repository and what is that it needs and how schema looks like, we will see later. And Oracle Business Activity Monitoring. So we do have a concept called BPEL, which is developed by the development team using JDeveloper. And this business activity monitoring will be acting as monitoring component, wherein it keeps monitoring all the business flow and the BPEL and provide us insight of what is happening with the SOA suite. And it also alerts us if something goes wrong or if they need warning messages in the services, it alerts us with the messages. And Oracle Enterprise Manager JDeveloper, it is integrated with development team, but we also do have Oracle Enterprise Manager, just like what we have console for the WebLogic. So in the WebLogic, if we need to maintain anything or to perform our administration, we may have one of the component called WebLogic console, admin console we call it as. So similarly, for Oracle SOA Suite, we have a console which are called as EM, which is Enterprise Manager. So to perform or to configure or to deploy or to maintain any of the SOA components, we go to EM, and then we try focusing or we try configuring or changing anything for SOA Suite. And BPEL Process Manager, it's just like Java Processing Manager. For example, on WebLogic, if we deploy any of the ER file or WAR file, there will be J2EE engine inside to understand the Java code and to process and to handle user request and response. Similarly, to understand the BPEL and to process it, we have one of the component inside SOA Suite, which is BPEL Process Manager, which we are not going to do anything major, taken care automatically by Oracle SOA Suite. And next one, Oracle Business Process Manager. So while we talk about BPEL Process Manager only talks about BPEL components, so we do have Oracle Business Process Manager to take care of the complete business flow. If it is going to be any component or any service within the SOA Suite, it is completely handled by Oracle Business Process Manager. So I would say BPEL process is a subset of Oracle Business Process Manager. And final one is Oracle Mediator. So the help of Oracle Mediator is going to be, if any of the request comes to SOA Suite, to where it is supposed to be redirected, to which component it's supposed to go, and it talks about mainly the navigation. So when the request comes in, based on the condition, based on the filter data, it will redirect request to different components of SOA Suite. So it acts as a mediator to direct the request from one component to another component. Even this one we will go through later. And to just give you an overall picture, some of them are completely taken care by Oracle SOA Suite, which is an internal process. We just need to have an idea about how SOA Suite maintains, but we don't have any option to either modify or configure because it's going to be maintained default. But some of them, yes, definitely we need to have a hands-on, and we need to start configuring, we need to start fine-tuning, we need to start understanding of how it is behaving and again tune it. So this continuous process may be going on, but some of them which we really don't need to care but it's always good to have knowledge about what is that it is happening inside the SOA Suite and how SOA Suite maintains inside. Good. So are you clear with high level with this terminologies what we use in SOA Suite, or should I repeat any of the component?
No, Naren, we are clear.
No, perfect. You remember we were talking about DB repository, what it creates while we run RCU. These are some of the repositories, and I'm sure even another two more. I just added some to show you as an example. So first one is called as SOA Infra, which is one of the major schema that creates in the DB, which is going to be heavily used by SOA Suite. And MDS is also one of the schema. When we deploy or when we maintain any of the metadata in Oracle SOA Suite, all those metadata information is going to be stored in a MDS repository, which is going to be schema. We will discuss what is that metadata and how do we maintain that. That's going to be pretty easy. And ORABAM, you remember in the previous screen we talked about business activity monitoring, which monitors all the BPEL components and alert us about the process flow and business flow. All those alerting data will be stored into ORABAM, which is one of the schema. And we do have OWSM, which talk about the policies. You remember in the last screen we discussed about policy manager. So all those policy manager information and data will be collected and stored into one of the repository called OWSM. And the final one is ORA BPM, which is Oracle BPEL Process Manager. So those Oracle BPEL Process Manager about the state, about how process is going, about how components are behaving, all this information data will be captured into ORA BPM. So like this, we have other two components called user messages. Further, there is a separate schema. So like this, we have total 7 schemas. each one has its own advantages, and in either of the ways, Oracle SOA suite is going to use them to interact or to store the data that is going to be reused in many ways. All right, let's move forward. And this is how is going to be SOA default architecture. By default, when you install SOA, we typically by default get one admin server and one managed server. That's a standard SOA installation setup. And based on our organization requirement, we may need to extend to get into clustered architectures that we will discuss later. We do have a SOA cluster architecture. So we will come to that later as to how do we design and how do we establish an high available environment running with SOA suite. And we have, if you remember, in WebLogic typically we have an application called var or AR, and we know that it consists of Java code and many other files or the technologies, I would say. And as per the Java terminology, we call that as an application. That means as a var, EAR, or jar file, whatever. But when it comes to the SOA suite terminology, all that we have a BPEL code which is going to be developed by development team, which SOA admin is not going to involve at all. And finally, whatever the code is being developed by the development team, it will be packaged in the form of composite, which is also an application, and that composite will be deployed on top of SOA suite. And now inside the composite, we may have the different components, as that means as a different technologies in SOA suite that we can see in the screen. We have a adapter services, that is one component. We have a mediator, one component. We have a BPEL, one component. We have a business rule, one component, and the human task and business events. These are all the components, and all together these components will become as a composite. So in the description wise, we can say a composite is a combination of multiple components, and depends on our organization requirement. We can either have one component or we can have 100 components. Either of the ways, we still call it as a composite. All right. So in SOA, what do we deploy end of the day? It's going to be composite. And the composite will have all the BPEL code inside, which is going to be developed by development team, which we typically don't involve, and we are not a developers. Next one, use of adapters. We know that any typical system need to integrate with multiple applications, like WebLogic is talking to Oracle database, WebLogic is talking to LDAP. Similarly, as we discussed as one of the advantage with Oracle SOA suite, it is going to be integrated with multiple applications and multiple technologies. Like it can communicate with MQ, it can communicate with mainframes, it can communicate with Oracle applications, it can communicate with Oracle database. So to integrate Oracle SOA suite with any of the technology, that means mainframes, for example, or B2B, or MQ, or JMS, any of the components, we may need to have the adapter. Adapter meaning it is going to be connector. How do we connect between the SOA suite and other component? You can see in the diagram, we have a SOA composite application. It connects to adapter, and adapter connects to external application systems. External application system could be of any technology, could be of any application for that matter. So it's going to be like this. We have a SOA suite, we have a mainframes. In between there is an adapter called mainframe adapter. So adapter help us to establish communication between the SOA suite and external applications. Those are called adapters, just like what we have data sources in the WebLogic. So we have a data source which is used to integrate between WebLogic, that means Java application, and database. Similarly, in Oracle SOA suite, we have a concept called adapters, which is used to integrate between SOA suite and external system. That we'll discuss. Oracle SOA suite supports multiple adapters, like we do have a JMS, BAM, file, FTP, database, MQ, AQ, JMS. There are many adapters that we will discuss later. What are some of them important which we need to use in an organizations? Already, SOA clustered architecture. So as we discussed, we can either set up the standalone SOA setup or we can go for high available. And we know that high available is something called, we call it as a clustered architecture. So again, how WebLogic provides us two different clusters, like one is vertical, another one is horizontal. Even SOA provides, these are two architectures. We can set up either vertical cluster or we can set up either horizontal cluster. But as we know, it's always preferred to go for horizontal cluster. Even this high available discussion we will take in detail when we get into SOA content. Already, so it is a brief about, mainly to give you idea about what is this SOA suite and then where it fits into the market and who are the organizations use it, and to give you brief about those versions and history as of SOA suite, and also give you brief about content, what do we have inside and what do we learn. And those who know, have little knowledge on middleware, I think SOA suite is going to be pretty easy. It's not too difficult. All right, open for questions.
Then we'll be discussing both 11G and 12C here, right?
Yes. So what we do is we will keep going. We will keep comparing the features so that it will be very good for you to get hands-on on both 11G and 12C, because as I said, still the market is on 11G, but I know that going forward it's going to be 12C. So we keep comparing the features between 11G and 12C. We move forward.
Okay. So how do we doing with the hands-on practice? I mean, do we have any labs, or will be providing the installations to us?
Oh, installations is pretty easy. It's not going to very difficult, because all softwares, we still can provide the softwares, but I would prefer to download from download.oracle.com. I will walk you through the steps of how to download. You can go ahead and register with your Gmail or Yahoo ID. So you can directly download it. So it's always better to get it from Oracle as a good practice, because Oracle officially provides us to practice.
Right.
Okay, I will walk through the steps of it as to, or sometime you can also share your screen and we can install it. So it's not going to be difficult. And also we will try to provide the document for the installation steps, which is a clear, including screenshots.
Okay. So will you be discussing all the components of Oracle SOA suite?
No, yes, it is, yes. So we cover the prerequisites for SOA, installations of SOA, and the basics what you know about SOA, and every component, then including we do have like B2B, EDI, mediator, user messages, password policies, SOA infra, composite stuff, adapters, everything will be covered.
Okay. And so are we going to discuss any real-time activities?
So
Like
more or less, any topic that we are going to discuss, that's going to be definitely correlating with real time. There is no doubt, because I myself don't know much theory. Okay, so if we discuss any of the component, yes, we try to discuss that component with a real-time examples by taking a practical life in our day-to-day life, and that will be discussed over. So it's going to be more of practical and real-time oriented.
Okay, why? Because I have gone through some documents and internal trainings. I mean, I have seen different ways of regular deployments and the ways of.
Yeah, I know that. You see, having just PPT and walking you through is definitely a mess, because we can understand without looking at the tool, without having the real-time approach. It's for anyone, it's a difficult. I do understand, and we also know how to overcome that difficulty. So we assure that we will give you right content, and end of the day you will be benefited with SOA. There is no doubt. I'm sure that in next coming 2-3 sessions you will understand that.
Okay. Thanks, Naren.
Any other questions that I can answer?
No, sir.
All right. Yeah, perfect.